Proverbs 28 verse 9 tells us that he that turns their ear, of course, he or she, everybody, he or she that turns their ear from hearing the law, even their prayer is an abomination. He or she that turns their ear from hearing the law, meaning that they don't want to hear the law. I just spoke to somebody last night who don't want to hear the law. They just don't want to hear it. But they talk about how, they have this, they want to give you the impression that they have this great relationship with the Most High, but they don't want to hear the law. So he or she that turns their ear from hearing the law, their prayer is an abomination to heaven. So that's a fact. That's a Bible verse that we ignore. We ignore it to our own, our own destruction. This is why we're suffering. So you see Proverbs 28 verse 9, and then you have Romans 2:13 that says that not the hearers of the law are just. So it's not just hearing. So it's not, we can look at Proverbs 28 verse 9 and think, okay, it says that he that turns their ear away from hearing the law, their prayer is an abomination. Okay, let me turn my ear. It doesn't mean for you to download an app and listen to the law. That's not what it means, because Romans 2:13 says that not the hearers of the law are just, but the doers of the law will be justified. The doers of the law, those that do the law, they are the ones that will be justified on the judgment day. So we have to live in reality and not deceive ourselves. And like what I said about marriage, it is what it is, and the Most High does not change. I'll tell you the truth, it would be nice if Yah can just let us do our own thing. That would be nice. I'm sure that you, when you were a kid, you would wish the same thing. It would be nice if our parents allowed us to do whatever we want. I don't know about you, but most, I'm sure that your parents did not allow you to do whatever you wanted. There are things that we would have wanted. Sometimes you want to stay up for a long time, but your parents would tell you, no, it's time to go and sleep. So there were things that we wanted to do that our parents did not allow us. Many things. I remember when I wanted to move out, I prepared a very nice, I thought to myself, I'm going to come up with a very good reason to give my mom as to why I'm going to move out. Okay. Me wanting to move out, I had my plans because I wanted to move out and be away from my family. So in that way, I can do whatever I want. That was my main reason of wanting to move out. I imagine how much, the kind of freedom I thought I was going to have if I move out, because being around them, I had a lot of restrictions, things I could not do. So I couldn't bring a girl in the house because there is almost always somebody in the house. So if I could move out, then I can do whatever I want. This is what I was thinking as a teenage boy. So I had my plan, like to convince my mother of why it was a good idea for me to move out. Of course, I'm going to pay for that place myself. But everything I still explained, she still did not allow me to move out. So there are things that we would like to do. Unfortunately, it's kind of like that with Yah. So we as a human being have really created these lies that we've decided to believe, which is that we have a relationship with the Most High right now. But when you begin to ask the questions that I pointed out earlier, which is, why isn't He answering us? How come when you pray He doesn't answer? Nobody will answer you that question. Nobody can answer you that question. So if If there is a God, how come he doesn't answer? So because of the, when you find out the reason why he doesn't answer, we don't want to deal with that, because Proverbs 28 verse 9 tells us the reason why he doesn't answer. So, but it still didn't matter to us. We still choose to believe the lies anyways. These are lies that we've believed. These are lies that Satan have told us. We like it, and we took it and we ran with it. That's exactly what happened to Eve in the garden. When Satan came and said, if you eat of that tree, your eyes will open and you will be like gods. Eve wanted to be like a god. Eve wanted to be worshipped. That's the truth. That was the thing that Satan said that she really liked. That really appealed to her. Her desire to be worshipped. Because originally, she was created to worship somebody. She was created to be under somebody. So Eve quickly saw the order that was in place. That Adam was the one that was under Yah, serving Yah. And she was made to belong to him. She was supposed to belong to him. So she didn't like that idea. So and Satan realized this. So Satan came at her, telling her exactly what she wants to hear. That's exactly same thing happens today. Same thing. So it's not just that Satan deceives somebody. See, it's same thing today. When people believe that they don't have to keep the law, why are they believing it? Are you going to blame Satan 100%? No. The reason why people believe they don't have to keep the law is because they want to continue doing certain things. There were certain things that we were doing when we were not keeping the law. They don't want to give those things up. So it's kind of wrong to blame Satan 100%. No, Satan is the one that gets the whole thing started. But people see and pick up what they want to hear. So we want to reserve the right. Men want to be able to have sex with any woman they want. They're not going to do it, okay? But they don't like the idea that they can't do it. They want to have a situation where they can do it if they see someone and the opportunity presents itself. That's why people love Christianity. So that's exactly what Christianity teaches. Christianity teaches you that you cannot keep the law. Hey, you cannot keep the law. Nobody can keep the law. Nobody is perfect. See, that's Satan speaking. Through Christianity, through the Europeans. These are Christian doctrines. So they come at you initially, okay, with that idea. You may even disagree with them in the beginning because that thing doesn't make sense. The idea that nobody is perfect and nobody can keep the law. That idea does not make any sense. So initially, a man may actually disagree, but wait until a half-naked woman walks by. Wait until a half-naked woman seduces him. That's when that person begins to think about that Christian doctrine. Nobody can keep the law. Nobody can keep the law, blah, blah, blah. And eventually, they will justify themselves. So, Christianity is a powerful tool that Satan is using. And he doesn't make you do anything. Satan doesn't make you do anything. He simply just deceives in the beginning. He deceives you in the beginning. And then people will just continue with that deception and just run with it. That's exactly what's going on today. That's what happened in the garden too. So in the beginning, um, Eve was like, no. Eve said, no. We are told not to eat that tree. We are told not to eat of that tree. So Eve did not walk up there and took it herself. If it was only Eve, she would not do it. So Satan came by and waited for Adam to leave. Adam left. He now came and she said no. So if it wasn't for Christianity today, most people in this world will be keeping the law. If it wasn't for Christianity, for the Europeans, if not for the Europeans, most people in this world will be keeping the law. So if you look at this world right now, if you look at it with all these nations, the Indians, the Pakistanis, the Chinese, notice that everybody is being westernized. They call it westernization. Notice that. So in this world right now, you don't have a situation where there's like different cultures, like people adopting different cultures. When you watch the world, if you do pay attention to stuff like that, you see that the whole world is doing almost the same thing, following the same system. And these are different nations abandoning their cultures and following Western culture. So there was a time when countries have kings. Your king. There are different kings. Like Hawaii has a queen. The nation of Hawaii, before America stole it from them, has a queen. They intimidated her, used intimidation to annex the land of Hawaii. They used to have a queen. So that was the way it used to be. But today, you can name countries that doesn't have presidents. You can, with your finger, name countries that does not have Western government. The rest of the world have adopted the European system. Now, that's what the Bible tells you, that the whole world will wander after the beast. Revelation chapter 13. But you want to start your journey from Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7. That's where you start your journey before you can understand Revelation chapter 13. So it's not a coincidence that you see the rest of the world following a particular system. So if not for the Europeans, for so-called white people, or the Europeans as I like to call them, if not for, so in that way you can know who I'm talking about. If not for them, most of the world, like as I said, if you study about calendar, go study about history of calendar. Russia was one of the last countries to stop using the moon as the calendar. So Gentiles, like Russians, the people of Russia who are Gentiles, even they themselves, I think I was at the library the day I saw this. I was looking at history books, encyclopedia, reading about calendar, and I saw that Russia was one of the last countries to stop using the moon as their calendar, begin to use European calendar. So that's the reason why I say that without Europeans, most of the world will be keeping the law. This is the reason why you go to China. You see that the Chinese dresses like us, the Hebrews. The Chinese people dress like us. They wear a robe. Their men dress like us. You go to India, even till this day, the Indians dress like Hebrews. They dress like us. So you go to Africa, see the same thing. But what is being used to replace these nations that are dressing like us, the Hebrews? What is being used to replace is the Western culture. Okay? Western culture, the government system, the financial system, Like as I said earlier, if you study about history of central bank, so you might want to just start from there. History of central banks. These countries used to have kings. They didn't have banks, but all you can also with your hand. There's about 200 or more than 200 countries in the world right now. You can name few countries that don't have central banks. But central bank is something that they got from the Gentiles, from the Europeans. And central bank helps to keep people in slavery. That's why Americans will go to war and they will slaughter hundreds of thousands to make sure that they put central bank in your country. They will do whatever they can to put central bank in your country. And they do it aggressively. So if your president or your king decide that he doesn't want central bank in your country, then they say that he is against prosperity. He is against prosperity, and they will use CIA. They will actually use CIA. There's a country. One of the last countries that they did Q in, which is very close to Russia. It later came out, there was a company that came out of Europe and describe what they do. So Americans will hire them to go and organize Q. This is what they do. The American government will pay. So if America wants to dismantle the government in your country, they will pay people to come there. So they have a way that they do it. So they will come into your country and they will look for unemployed youth, people who are unemployed. They will look for them and they will pay them money. They will tell them that the reason why you are unemployed is because of your president. Look at your president. He's riding around in plane and riding around in roads, riding around in all this. Here you are, you're poor. You need to do something. This is our country is willing to come and help your country. But before we can help you guys, you need to get rid of him. And these fools, these dummies will believe that lie. This is what goes on in the world today. This is what goes on in the world. Look at Libya. Libya is a mess. That's exactly what the Americans did to the Libyans. Libya was the greatest country in Africa. People were going from Ghana, from the place known as Ghana, place known as Nigeria. They were going to Libya to go work. If you are a Libyan, when you get married, the Libyan government will give you money. They will give you allowance. They will pay you. They actually pay people to get married. They are things that because they have oil. So the Libyan government, Gaddafi, made sure that the citizens are fine. The Libyans was not complaining. This man made sure that Libyan people are fine. Libya is so well organized and so prosperous. They were so prosperous that you now have other neighboring countries who are going to Libya to go live over there and make money over there and send back to their countries. If Libyans were hungry, there would not be enough for other neighboring people to come in and live over there. But this is a fact. You can go look it up and you see for yourself. So Libya was very prosperous and everything was fine. But Gaddafi, saw what the Europeans have been doing to Africans. He saw it and he saw it as injustice because they were using their World Bank. The Europeans was using their World Bank to basically steal from Africans. So they will come in and they give them loan. Remember what I explained to you before about credit cards. Remember that they are the ones that print this money. So they come, it's like me coming into your house. I see you have a tree of orange. You have a tree of plantain. You have a tree of tomatoes. I come in there and I say to you, you can improve your compound. I can give you a loan for you to use to improve your compound. And typically that sounds very good to people. So I go back and I go to my printer. I put bunch of paper and I print bunch of papers and I give it to you. So now you have to pay me back with interest. I just gave you a bunch of piece of paper. And in the case of countries, it's even more pathetic. It's even more sad the way they do with countries. Because at least if I give you a bunch of piece of paper as money, that's even so, at least I gave you something. What they do is that they just punch in numbers in computer. So okay, I'm going to give you $2 billion. You pay me back in 2 years with interest. If you don't pay me back, then I'm going to take your natural resources. So they will use their natural resources as collateral. They use their natural resources. These African countries will use, you have to give something as a collateral. The thing is that the loan is doomed from the beginning because that money gets stolen by those people in power and it's never used to do exactly what it was supposed to be used for. So it's guaranteed that that country will be in debt. Guaranteed. Because as soon as that loan is given, these criminals who are ruling those countries will steal those money. So when this country takes those loans, they are going in debt because that money will be stolen. If I give you a loan to do something, but somebody in your house is going to steal that money, how are you going to pay me back? So that guarantees that I will have access to whatever you give me as collateral. This is what these people are doing. And when I call them out as being our enemies, some people get uncomfortable. That means that you are also our enemies. Because if you support our enemies, you are our enemies. You're part of our enemy. These people hate us. And their action speaks louder than anybody can speak. I was watching a video. Countries like Switzerland. They are flooding Africa with cheap what you call food. But this is not real food. Like, it's not. What they're flooding Africa with is things that African farmers are producing. The things that African farmers are already producing. They will grow it and flood Africa with that, putting those farmers in Africa out of business. But what got my attention was that they have a law in Europe that bans things coming into Europe from Africa. So as an African farmer, you cannot export your own things to go sell in their country, which will make you rich because that's what they're doing to you. So the law was so clearly written, and they have protections in their border preventing you from coming in to sell in their countries. And they say that the reason why is basically to protect their farmers. They also, through their trade deals, make it impossible for African countries to put the same protection. So African countries are not allowed to put a limit to how much things that Europeans will ship into Africa. But Europeans do, so they actually force that you can't put a limit, but they themselves have limit. So when you see what I'm talking about, it's clear you're dealing with someone that hates you, because this It basically puts those farmers that grow the real ones, farmers that grow real organic, it puts them out of business. While Africa is being flooded with fake food, fake poisonous things as food. An average person doesn't know these things. So when they go to the market, they want to buy the cheap one. They don't realize that the ones that are grown in their country by their farmer is the real one. But it's more expensive because the people that are flooding you with cheap ones grew that cheap ones with chemicals. That's why they're able to make it to grow faster. An African poultry owner may take 6 months to grow a chicken. 6 months, 7 months. In America, it takes 43 days to grow a chicken. 43 days. That's a month and something. So how can somebody who is doing it the right way compete with someone who is doing it with chemicals? And which one would you like to eat? The one that grew in for 6 months or the one that grew in 43 days? Because that one that grew in 43 days, the reason why it grew in 43 days is because of chemicals that they are pumping to that, starting from the egg. So as an individual, if you eat that one that was grew in 43 days, you are destined for cancer. It's destined to eventually kill you if you eat the one, because it's not right. It's grown the wrong way. And these are the kind of crap they use to flood Africa. I have personally run into a Gentile that told me that he works for a company that sent food to Saudi Arabia and to Nigeria. That's what he said. And I asked him, do you guys make your food with GMO? He said, oh yeah, the stuff we make has genetically modified, it's GMO. I asked him, do you eat the stuff that you guys produce in your company? He said, no, I don't eat the stuff we make. The only thing that we make that I eat is almond. And I eat it because I know it's not genetically modified. That particular almond is not genetically modified. So here you have a Gentile telling me in my face, like, he doesn't know he doesn't know me. He doesn't know who I am. He was just telling me the truth. He was just telling me. He doesn't know why I was asking him. So he told me that they're making genetically modified stuff and they ship it to other countries. He, as an individual, will not eat the stuff that they make, but they will make it and ship to Africans. So these are the things that Gaddafi decided. Gaddafi decided to start a bank for Africans. That will be Central Bank of Africa. And he decided to put Libyan money in that bank. And African countries will come and take loans without interest. So if an African country needs a loan, they can come and take money, but with no interest. So you don't have to worry about losing your natural resources because you're not able to pay back. And as soon as Gaddafi decided to do this, before that, he was a darling to the Europeans. They love him. As soon as he decided to open this bank, that's when all hell broke loose. All of a sudden, he became a dictator. So, as usual, they will use their CIA and come into their country and look for people that they will pay. They will pay people to get on the street. When I call these people devils, that's an understatement. If you know what they have done, you really need to get educated in what they are doing around the world. These are the only people that have dropped a nuclear bomb on another country. No other country has ever had the heart and the conscience to drop a bomb on another country. There's a lot of countries that have nuclear bomb, but they've never had the conscience to be able to get on a plane and drop a bomb. Americans are the only ones that have done this. That is to show you who you're dealing with, to show you how dangerous they are. This is not a joke. And you can see it almost every week on your television. How they slaughter each other, how they slaughter people. You know, these people are not real. And I don't want to sound as a conspiracy theorist, but they are exactly the way that Yah programmed them. They are ruthless. So, what do they do to Gaddafi in Libya? They do what they usually do. They will come in and look for young boys, pay them money, pay them, give these boys money. These boys will go crazy. And then they brainwash them. They tell them, look, you're suffering. We would like to come in here and help you guys, but your leader is getting in the way. You guys need to change him. You need to remove him from the office. These fools, these teenagers, they don't realize that the devil just spoke to them. They will get on the street and they start marching. They will start marching on the street, protesting against their leader. Then the same Europeans, the same CIA will then hire people to go shoot those people marching on the street. This is what you see, Iraq, Libya. So initially in the beginning, you're not going to hear anything about this until they brainwash these people and give them money and they go to the street. Then they themselves will then hire some other people that will dress like police officers. They will dress like the military or the police officers and get on the street and shoot those people who are protesting. So they pay them to get out and protest against their president. But then they will also go and shoot them. So as soon as they shoot them, that's when you begin to hear it on CNN. Oh man, that man is so horrible. He is a dictator because he's killing people who are protesting. This is what happens. So, at that point, they are now preparing you for lynching. At that point, because they are, telling the whole world that you are evil. Because most people would think, who would want to kill people who are protesting against him? You. So this is what they did to Saddam Hussein. That's how they demonize people. That's how they demonize when they want to overthrow a country. And by shooting those people that they paid to get on the street, they now blame the leader, that he's the one that did it. That's what they do. Right now, as I speak, it's happening in Syria. Go on YouTube and type in war in Syria. There's two versions. Anything you hear from CNN, BBC is a lie, propaganda. It's lies and propaganda. So, it's pure lies and propaganda. Because there are American companies. Americans are producing a lot of natural gas. America is producing a lot of natural gas. And they are producing excess, more than what they need. And they will love to sell it to European countries. Europe needs that natural gas to heat their homes. That's how they heat their homes. So right now they are only buying it from Russia. Russia is closer to Europe than America is to Europe. So Russia has a pipeline that goes from Russia and goes into Europe. So the Europeans are at the mercy of the Russians. And this is billions of dollars worth of gas that Russians are supplying, because the Russians have that natural resources. So they have this natural resources, which is gas coming out from their land, and they sell it to the Europeans. So the Americans will like to start selling their own gas to the Europeans. The problem is that they need to go through, it has to go through Syria. So, and the Syrian government will not let them because Russia doesn't want to lose that market in Europe. So, the Americans are trying to get the Syrian government out of the way. This is the reason why right now the Russian government is supporting the Syrian government. America have tried everything to bring down that government. So when you go and look about the war in Syria, you hear all kinds of, oh, he's a dictator, he's this, he's that. They've even gone as hard as far as gassing people, releasing gas on the Syrians, and claiming that one made national news. It made national news during the time of Obama, when Obama said that, gassing the people will be a red line. That will be the, that will be it. If they gas their people, and then it wasn't long, news came out that, oh, the Syrian government gassed their own people. That's how far these people will go. These people are psychopaths. I feel sorry for those who don't realize what's going on and you're thinking that your little friend is different. These are psychopaths. The people that brought down their own building and killed more than 3,000 of the so-called Americans just to go into Iraq. There's nothing they cannot do. These people are not normal. Like, they're not like normal mentally. They're not regular people. They don't think like you. You have compassion. They have none. They will say they do, but they don't. Their action doesn't show that. They're not supposed to have compassion. If they have compassion, then the Bible is a lie. Deuteronomy chapter 28, from verse 48. The Most High tells you that He will send a ruthless nation on you. Ruthless. Nation that does not pity a child or respect the elderly. So this is how they killed Gaddafi. Today, Libya is a mess. Chaos. It's a mess. Why? Because he wanted to open that bank to help Africans. Because Africans are prey. Africans are vulnerable to the Europeans. And the Europeans are using their so-called bank. As soon as they give that loan, the president, the vice president, the senators will eventually divide that money. Where does that money end up? Back in Europe, back in London, back in the US, because they use those money to buy big buildings. And the regular people are stuck with the bill. And the regular people ends up losing their natural resources. So when you don't understand this, when you don't understand these things, and you hear people say something against the Europeans, you may not understand why. But the bigger picture is Daniel chapter 2, though. Because Daniel chapter 2 tells you that these things will happen. Go and read what it says about the fourth kingdom. It says that the fourth kingdom will trample upon the whole world. That's not a good thing. When it says that the fourth kingdom will trample and crush everything on their path, that's not a good thing. But it did say that it will happen. And that's what the fourth kingdom is doing. That's why no other nation sees it necessary to have military base in other countries. Like, it's not a normal thing. There are some countries that do have one or two bases outside, but most countries don't do that. They don't, like, why would you want to go to somebody's country and build a base and put your soldiers there? Why would you want to do that? So to a lot of countries, that doesn't make any sense. If you are a normal human being, that doesn't make any sense. You're going to ask yourself, why would we want to go to somebody's country and buy a land in their country and build a military base when we have people that we have to feed? That's how normal people think. And everybody will be like, you know what, that's true. That's true. That makes sense. Why would you want to do that? But to the Americans, they don't think like that. They think to dominate, to crush, to destroy. They are psychopaths. They are addicted to power. They speak just like Satan. They talk about freedom, freedom, freedom. They don't know freedom. That's why it's being talked about all the time, because you don't have it. So let's keep repeating it to make you think that you have it. If you've never traveled out, if you're born and raised among the Gentiles, and you never traveled out from there, you have no idea what you're missing. So that's why you see people that travel from America and go to Africa, and then they go back to America and sell their stuff and move. Because they just tested real freedom. Real freedom. So these are, when people don't keep the law, it's not just that Satan is deceiving them. Because if you look at what happened in the garden, Yah punished Adam, punished Eve, punished Satan. So Yah held every three of them responsible for their actions. Adam was because he was weak. He listened to his wife. As a man, you're not supposed to listen to your wife in terms of what you want to do. Every decision you make in your household should be yours. Today, men will consult their wife before they do anything. Oh, let me talk to my wife. Yeah, I'm going to discuss that with my wife. That turns me off. When a man says that, you're not supposed to do that. Your wife is not your partner. I know that that's what the Europeans told you. But your wife is not your partner. This is not partnership. If it's partnership, Yah will not say that you will rule over her. Partners don't rule over partners. Partners are equal. It's 50-50. My partner has equal rights with me in our company, in our endeavors, whatever we're doing. Your partner is someone that you come together with to do something together. That's your partner. You are equal. You can come together and make a decision on something. So if you're practicing marriage, or if you're not teaching your children to understand that this is not partnership, they are bound to have problems. You will never succeed in marriage if you don't do it Yah's way. And right now in the world, Yah's way when it comes to marriage is disgusting to people. Yah's way when it comes to marriage is disgusting to people. People don't want to touch it. They don't want to do it Yah's way. And they'll suffer. Just yesterday, somebody was telling me about, basically their desire, to have a man that will be faithful to them or whatever. And I explained to them, you don't want someone that will be faithful to you, because people can always change. If you're looking for someone that will be faithful to you, they can always change their mind. Maybe when you get fat, maybe when you have a baby and you have stretch mark. There are many reasons why people will change. And not only are they going to change and go against their promise that they made to you, not only will they do that, but they will make sure to let you know that you are the cause that they They went against their word and their promise to you because of you. If you didn't get fat, then it wouldn't happen. I would have stayed. If you didn't get this, so that's what you get when you deal with people. So if you are a man, do not look for a woman that will be submissive to you. Rather, look for a woman that will be submissive to Yah. Truly, it's hard to see a woman who will claim that she's not submissive to Yah, but then her behavior will say otherwise. So a lot of people claim to be submissive to Yah, but their behavior screams otherwise. So it's actually really tricky for a man. It's tricky. So you might end up sticking to looking for somebody that will be submissive to you. At least that will be easy for you to detect. A lot of women claim to be daughters of Sarah. A lot of women claim to be daughters of Sarah. But will they call their husband their master? No. But that's what Peter is telling you to do, to be like Sarah. So there's a lot of talking going on today in terms of people claiming stuff and we claiming things. Action is actually where it counts. It's what we do. So a man is not supposed to. This is not partnership. If you are in marriage or you're teaching your children, don't teach your daughter that she is equal with her husband. Ignore the world. Ignore the world and teach your daughter that she is going to serve her husband as her husband is going to be serving Yah. Teach her that. When you teach her that, your daughter is going to most likely be married to that man, because if she has that mentality, that's going to affect the way she behaves. And what Satan has hidden from people is that people don't actually know that if a woman is genuinely submissive to a man, that makes you set apart. That makes you special. See, it's hard to find a woman that is like that. So only a fool will mistreat you when you're being 100% submissive. This is something that he cannot find anywhere. So what people don't realize, what women don't realize, and this is one of the deception from Satan, he doesn't want you to realize this, is that when a woman is actually submissive to a man, it really that man doesn't want to lose you, because he knows it's difficult to find a woman like that. So when you're trying to flex your muscles and flex your power and exercise your partnership with your husband, you have no idea, because when you're doing that, you're just acting like every other woman. Okay? So he doesn't have much incentives to be with you, right? Because you're just like everyone else. This is what happened to Vashti and Esther. So that was what Vashti did in the book of Esther. When Esther came in, she realized this and she decided to go a different way, which is an unconventional way. This was also the reason why Abraham was not in such a hurry to go marry another wife, because of Sarah's behavior. Where are you going to find a woman that will call you master? It's not very easy to find. So why be in a hurry to go marry someone else? So this is like a little secret for those that have children. It's like a little secret. If you make yourself not just in marriage, that's why it's not good to be like everyone else. Whatever you do, whoever you are, man or woman, When you're like everyone else, then you're just like everyone else. But if you begin to keep the law, that automatically sets you apart. Like literally, like automatically sets you apart. Not everybody wears fringes. So when you're wearing your fringes all the time, that sets you apart. One of the false impression that Satan have also made us to have is when it comes to holiness. People think of holiness as something spiritual. No. Holiness is very simple. When you're keeping the Sabbath, that sets you apart. That's holy. When you're wearing your fringes, that sets you apart. Being holy is not spiritual, it's practical. But today in the Christian church, they have a completely different understanding of holiness. They think it's spiritual. They think it's acting quiet and being nice and smiling and never getting angry and saying God bless you. They think it's holiness, and not drinking alcohol. They think it's holiness. Are you kidding me? No. Yah told you to drink alcohol, but just don't get drunk. Yeshua Christ in John chapter 2 turned water into alcohol. Read the wedding at Cana very well. Christ turned water into alcohol. So Satan have created all this false understanding that he's created today. So people are thinking that holiness is doing all this nonsense that has nothing to do with holiness. Holiness is when you keep the law. It's practical. It can be seen with your eyes. People can see it. When you see a holy person, you can tell by the way they dress and what they do. The way they dress and what they do. If you're keeping the Sabbath, that's holy. That's why Yah says for us to keep the Sabbath day holy. The Most High said that we should keep the Sabbath day holy. Right? So how do we keep it holy? So we were told to be holy. Okay. So let's use the Sabbath to find out how to be holy. So we were told that we need to be holy. He also told us to keep the Sabbath day holy. So how did he tell us to keep the Sabbath day holy? By keeping that day separate. By not doing on that day the same thing we do in other days. So by not going to work on that day, by worshiping and resting. Right now my phone is off. My phone is on airplane mode. So if you call me right now, you will not be, if you call my number, I'm not going to be able to answer. So anybody that calls me right now, but the rest of the days, the rest of the week, my phone is off. Sister Brenda, could you mute your mic? So the rest of the, Sister Brenda, could you mute your mic? So for the rest of the week, my phone is off. I'm going about my business. So by you actively keep the Sabbath day holy. It's not just a feeling, it's action. That is the day that you worship. That's the day that that's the day that you don't cook. That's the day that you want to make sure you're clean. So that's how you keep the Sabbath day holy, practical. It's the same thing with us. So when you're like everyone else, then you're like everyone else. Yah doesn't take much interest in you because you're just like everyone else. But as soon as you start keeping the law, that sets you apart because he told us to be set apart. So all of us are not the same in the sight of Yah. Because Yah gave a commandment, be ye holy, for I am holy. Leviticus chapter 20. Be ye holy, for I am holy. Also, Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 2. Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 2. Leviticus chapter 20, 26. Be ye holy, for I am holy. So that's what he said. So now he's watching to see how many people are going to do it. So he only cares about those people who are being holy. He cares about them. The rest of the people are just running on and surviving on his mercy until they are destroyed. So those people that do choose to be holy by being set apart, dressing differently, behaving differently, not eating whatever, but making sure that whatever you eat is clean, observing the Sabbath day, using his calendar instead of everyone else using Saturday and Sunday. See, this is what sets us apart. This is what actively sets us apart. So I can tell you whatever I want to tell you, that, oh, I know God, blah, 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 but my action is going to show whether I do or not. And if I'm doing it right, I don't have to say anything. This is the reason why sometimes you run into people on the street and they have their fringes on. You know, that person doesn't have to say anything. You know that this person is keeping the law because that fringes sets them apart. You could go for months and you never see anybody with fringes. I think I have gone now for, it's been maybe like 2 months or something since I saw somebody on the street with fringes on. It's been like at least more than 3 months now that I've seen anybody in my area with fringes on. So that's what sets you apart, by actively keeping the law. So it's interesting when I watch this generation and women and parents who are not teaching their children correctly, that these are, when your child is set apart, that becomes like it seals them. It makes their husband to love them more and more and more, and their husband would not want to lose them because they know that she is set apart. It's hard to find somebody like her. So the way to achieve that is to make her to be set apart. Once she's, to make her to act differently, not just in dressing. There's a lot of Hebrew girls that dress moderately. That's not enough. It's the behavior. Just like there's a lot of Hebrew women today that claims to be Sarah's daughter. But if they have a husband, they would never genuinely call their husband their master. They would never see their husband as their master. But they claim to be a daughter of Hebrew. So it's the behavior. When a girl is taught these things properly, she may end up not having a child. Her husband will still be like, you know what, that's fine. That's fine. Her husband would not be in a hurry, just like Abraham, our ancestor Jacob. He loved his wife, and when what happened between him and his father-in-law, he ended up serving another 7 years. He ended up serving another 7 years just to get the one that he really wanted. Why? Because there was something special about her. So these are some of the ways that Satan have scammed people today. And we have this weird understanding of marriage. And if anybody speaks the truth, then he is a chauvinist. He's a woman hater that hates women. Um, so, but the truth is still the truth, and the fact is still the fact. The fact is that what we're doing today is not working. And what we're doing, we've learned from the Gentiles, and it's not working. It's not. And it pains me that my sisters gets to suffer more. My sister gets to suffer more. But if you try to talk to them, they wouldn't listen. They would not listen. Because they're holding on to that Gentile mentality. So the end result is pain and suffering eventually. Pain and suffering, which is absolutely avoidable. So going back to why people refuse to keep the law, it's really, the blame is not only on Satan. The blame is not only on Satan. Satan is an opportunist. Satan has a simple goal, which is to get you to disobey the law. It's that simple. So when he comes up to us like he did Eve, if Eve was just there alone by herself, she would never touch that tree. She would never, ever, ever touch that tree. Eve would have kept that law. So what happened is that Satan came up and told her what she wanted to hear, which is what the Europeans are doing to us today. That's exactly what the Europeans are doing to us. So they come and tell you exactly what you want to hear. And they pretend as if they care about you. And we can't even see the deception, the lies. You can't even see it. So he came up to Eve and said, if you eat of that tree, yes, I know that God told you not to do that, but if you do it, you will be like gods. So gods are worshipped. That's what you could do to a god. Like our Heavenly Father telling us not to worship other gods. That's what you do to a god. You don't eat a god. You don't sleep with a god. Gods are worshipped. Sometimes we join other nations and we join them in worshiping their gods. That's what you do to a god. So when you talk about other gods, it's about worship. Meaning that you submit yourself to that god. You submit yourself. You bow to the god and you submit yourself. So you have to hold that God at a higher esteem before you can worship it. That means that you're thinking that God is better than you. You have to have a reason why you worship a God. So Eve liked the idea because she did not like the position that Yah had put her in, which is the position to be serving her husband, to work for her husband, while her husband is working for Yah. That's the way it's supposed to be. An average Hebrew man should have one way or the other that he is serving Yah. If you're just living your life and you're just going out there and working and making money and that's it and keeping Sabbath, and that's not enough as a Hebrew man. That is not enough. You have to have one way or the other that you serve the Most High, that you serve Him. One way or the other. It doesn't have to be extreme. You don't have to know the scripture to do that. There has to be a one way or the other that you're offering service. It could be something as simple as telling people that they are Hebrew at any opportunity you get. If you run into someone who is a Hebrew and you have an opportunity, you tell them, hey, you know we're Hebrew Israelites, right? You know we're not African Americans, right? You know we're not Jamaicans, right? You know we're not, do you know that? And we're actually the true people of the scriptures, and we are suffering today because we're not keeping the law. We have to keep the law. We need to keep the law to be allowed into the kingdom of heaven. It doesn't matter if they listen to you or not. It doesn't matter. The thing is that you've sown a seed. You have sown a seed. And in the process of doing what I just told you, I've talked to people that would tell me, you know what? I've had that before. I had this person tell me this or that person tell me that. I've had that before. So when you do tell someone that something like that, they may not believe you. They may not take you seriously. Maybe 3 years from now, 4 years from now, they will hear it again. And that will really get them to start researching and begin to look into it. Because they've had it before and then they're hearing it again. So you may be the first person to sow the seed. Because it's very important for us to understand who we are. Once we understand who we are and we accept it, that means we have to keep the law. See, when you don't know who you are, that lie about not keeping the law or not, that stands. But once you understand that you're a Hebrew, then you realize that we have to keep the law, because we're in this mess because we broke the law. So that's one of the reasons why most of our people don't want to accept that we are Hebrews. They don't want to accept it because they know that once they accept it, like someone told me last night, they tried to tell me that the law was given to the Israelite. So that's their excuse for not keeping it. Well, the law was given to the Israelite. And then I told them, would you like me to show you where it says that the law is for everybody? Would you like to see where it says that the law is for everybody? So when they realized that I could show them in Numbers chapter 15, verse 15, Numbers 15, 15, and 16, all of a sudden they changed. They were like, okay, the law is given to everybody. So our people will give you all kinds of reasons. They will refuse to accept that we are the Hebrews. Even though the so-called Israeli government, the people in the land of Israel right now, they've gone to West Africa among the Igbos and confirmed to them that they are the Hebrews. You can see the pictures online. You can see pictures and maybe video or whatever, but there's definitely pictures. People that went from Jerusalem or Israel to West Africa among the Igbos. And the whole thing was celebrated and they took pictures. You can see it. They went to tell our people that they are the real Hebrews. But still, our people, a lot of them don't want to accept it. So here you have the so-called Jews who are white, Europeans, coming to tell you that you are the real people, and our people still refuse to accept. Why? Because they realize that if they accept that we are the Hebrews, that means that they're going to have to change. It means that they're going to have to start keeping the law. Because the excuse used to be, well, the law was given to the Israelite. Because it's clear in the scripture that Yah says, talk to the Israelite, say to the Israelite, tell the Israelite, say to the Israelite. So the excuse has always been that, oh, the law was given to the Hebrews. So our people will refuse to accept that they're Hebrews because they know that once they accept that, all of a sudden, they're going to have to keep the law. So we are selling our identity because of cheap, temporary pleasure, which is what you get in this life. Cheap, temporary pleasure. Whether you're talking about food, like shrimp or pork, or you're talking about your house, cars, whatever. These things are cheap, temporary pleasure, like sex. So our people, because they don't want to give up these things, we are literally selling our identity. Because that's what it means. How else, like what else has to be done when you come to the point? I was listening to one of the people that made this trip. One of the people, the Gentiles, the so-called Jews, that was involved in this particular thing. When he said it, it's like, what other proof do you need when people that stole your identity is now coming out and telling you that actually you are the real people? Like, what else do you need? That guy was interviewed, it's on YouTube. But still, our people still refuse. I don't know if you read the book of Judges and all these other scriptures like Judges. This is the same behavior that you see from our ancestors. This is the reason why it shouldn't be surprising that most of our people will be destroyed. Because like as I was saying, Yah is like a parent. Actually, he described himself as a parent, as our father. Deuteronomy chapter 32. Deuteronomy chapter 32. 2 Corinthians chapter 6 verse 17 and 18. He describes himself as a father. And if you remember how things was with your parents, you know that there are certain things that you don't want to do, but your parents makes you do it anyway. There are certain things that you want to do, but your parents don't want you to do them. It's not that your parents hate you. No. They're looking out for you. But as a young person, you don't really see the reason why they're telling you not to do it. You think that they hate you until you become older and you become a parent. Then you begin to think, wow, now I realize why my parents did not want me to do that. So our Heavenly Father is kind of like that. There are certain things that he tells us to do, which is part of the law, that doesn't make sense immediately. But as time goes on, you look back and you're like, wow, now it makes sense. Like something as simple as envy not your oppressor. Proverbs 3:31. Proverbs 3:31. Envy not your oppressor and learn none of his ways. Envy not your oppressor and learn none of his ways. Jeremiah chapter 10 verse 2. Jeremiah chapter 10 verse 2. He says, learn not the ways of the Gentiles. When I began to take that verse seriously, I began to question began to look at everything. Like I began to be skeptical about European things. Anything that comes from them, I tend to be skeptical. So before I eat something, I look at the labels. I want to look at the labels and see, is there chemicals? Are there words that I cannot pronounce in that label? I want to make sure that everything in that label I can see. So most importantly, I begin to go towards natural food. Begin to embrace the things that Yah created more than man-made things, because he said, learn not the ways of the Gentiles. See, these people are foolish. Okay? These people are not very bright. There are decisions that they make that are destroying them, and they're still making it. There is this video on YouTube. Type in Heart Attack Burger or Heart Attack Restaurant. That's the name of that restaurant. If you watch that video, you see how dumb and stupid these people are. So that restaurant is, you see that video on YouTube, Heart Attack Burger or Heart Attack Restaurant. So what you see in that video, when you watch it, you just sit and watch that video and you think to yourself, who does this? So this restaurant was built to be, they make like really, really dangerous food. So they make burgers. Their fries, their fries are made to be like unhealthy. Their fries are very unhealthy. Intentionally, they make their fries to be unhealthy, but it tastes good. So they fry it in a way that it tastes good, but it's unhealthy. Their burgers are very bad. That's the reason why the name of the restaurant is Heart Attack burgers or whatever. Go look it up on YouTube. I think that report was done by ABC News. So this is not some fairy tale. That restaurant is somewhere in America. I forgot the state. So, but if you go to that restaurant, oh my goodness, there's a bunch of Gentiles because they want to go eat at the heart attack, they want to taste that burger. So there are people that walk over there, they dress like nurses. They dress like nurses and doctors and stuff. They dress like nurses. It's supposed to be like a joke, but it's not. Because if you have any kind of sense in your head, you will never eat in a place like that. So the man that was the spokesperson of that restaurant, he died of heart attack. They lied and claimed that he died of cold, pneumonia. That's not true. Because he was like more than 300 pounds. He was more than 300 pounds. And that's what he was eating. He was eating that hamburger. So, but the reason why I brought this up is because if you look, people are going over to that restaurant knowing fully well that this thing will cause heart attack. That's the reason why they know fully well and they still eat there. So that's how they think. And you don't want to follow people like that. You do not want to follow people like that. I saw a video about shrimp, the dangers of shrimp. And that video was showing that shrimp is like a pig. It's just that pigs are like running around and eating whatever they see, right? According to that video, they took cameras and they went down deep under the ocean. That video is also on YouTube. They took a camera and went down under the ocean and they were videoing shrimps, and shrimp will eat anything. So shrimp is like, their job is to keep the bottom of the ocean clean. And the point of that video is to show that you actually need shrimp, but you need them down at the ocean because they are the ones who are keeping the bottom of the ocean clean by eating up all the junk. So when I watched that video, I wanted to go and look at the comments. I went at the comment section and you see people saying, oh man, I'm never eating shrimp again. Oh no, I'm never eating shrimp again. After watching this video, people were saying this. And then I saw a comment. Somebody made a comment and said that this is even more of a reason for them to eat shrimp. They were saying that they're going to continue eating shrimp, and this basically their point is that this, is a reason to eat shrimp. And you wonder, like, who thinks like that? But this is how they think. So when Yah told you not to follow the Gentiles, there's a reason why he told you not to do that. Because these people are not really normal, like mentally. They're not. They will tell you that you are less of a human being. But when we look at facts, the fact is that our people, naturally, we are not like them. We have compassion. We used to not be all about materialism. We are really bad today because we're following them. And like Ezekiel chapter 23. Ezekiel chapter 23. If you read Ezekiel 23, you see that the same thing that has always happened has happened. Which is that when the Israelite begins to follow other nations and learn the ways of other nations, they tend to be worse than that nation. Ezekiel chapter 23 will show you that. The Israelites will tend to be worse than that nation that they're following. That's exactly what has happened to us. So the Gentiles are going to be doing something. Once we learn it from them, we take it to a whole new level. A whole new level. This is what you see with homosexuality and many other things. So something as simple as learn not the ways of the Gentiles, simply believing that particular verse in Jeremiah chapter 10 verse 2 can put up to 20 years in your life in the world that we're living right now. Can put up to 20 years in your life. Now, I just gave you example of basic things that they do and basic things. I'm not even going to go into the food. They are constantly altering the food. And then they go on television and make advertisement and show you it's good. And they're eating it, oh, it's good. Just because they're eating it doesn't mean it's good. Look at wine, beer. These are chemicals. Our people have the mentality that if white people are doing it, then it must be good. So it's like I mean, if you follow someone who is already destined to a particular destination, if you start following somebody who is destined to go to a particular destination, but that's not where you are destined to go, you are going to end up in that destination where they're going. So Yah doesn't care about these people. Let me put it bluntly. That's what it says in 2nd Esdras. And I'm not the one that wrote 2nd Esdras chapter 6 from verse 54. Yah don't give a damn about these people. I did not write 2nd Esdras chapter 6 from verse 54. It tells you right there. Prophet Ezra was telling Yah, you are the one that said that they are nothing. So according to what we read, Yah said that they are nothing. These nations. So the reason why I'm saying this is that when you see them on television eating something that is, chemical, like whatever, when you see them doing it to show you that you can do it, you don't want to do it. Because we tend to think that if they are doing it, then it must be safe because they're doing it. But you have to understand that you're not the same with them. You're not equal. You're not the same. The Most High does not see you the same way. So what we are suffering right now is that Yah have said to us, learn not the ways of the Gentiles. And then Yah keeps quiet and watches us. So he makes them to do the things that you see them doing right now. They are altering so many things. They are making so many things. Oh my goodness. There is a report that just came out not too long ago about Quaker Oat and cereal. Quaker Oat. So you might want to go on YouTube and type in dangers of Quaker Oat. So they found out that there is traces of glyphosate in Quaker Oat and cereals that people are drinking every morning. These are things that people are giving to their kids every morning. Glyphosate is a chemical that farmers are using to grow their food. They spread it on their plant. So it's now going from the plant into ends up in your cereals every morning. So through drinking those cereals like Quaker Oat or cereals, you can watch the video and you can see for yourself. It was a news report, and you don't have to have that chemical in your food, but they're using it to grow the because it's easier to use it to grow crops. So that thing also causes cancer. It causes problem. And this is what people are drinking every morning. So when I tell you that the future doesn't look good, things are going to get worse. Things are going to get worse. And according to these Gentiles, these children that they are giving birth to right now, this current generation will not outlive their parents. Because you now see boys and girls like 8, 9 years old being diabetic, which is unheard of, which is like ridiculous to have people that age be diabetic. But that's what we got. So the fact that these people are not even backing down, they are intensifying their chemicals that they are producing and adding them into food, things are going to get worse. But things will be worse for people who are not obedient to the law of the Most High. Because if you're used to being obedient to His law, a simple instruction, learn not the ways of the Gentiles, sounds like a burden. Sounds like your father is trying to keep you away and punish you and make you not get along with other kids. That's what it sounds like. But actually, your father is trying to protect you from danger. Following the Europeans, it's very dangerous. Nothing good ever comes out of following the Europeans. It's always death, destruction, pain, suffering, misery. Eventually, that's usually the result. Eventually, you're going to get sick. Eventually, you're going to go to their hospital. Eventually, they will tell you that you're going to be on medication for the rest of your life. I showed you a video of those Hebrew sisters, again from YouTube. You saw that video. Those women you saw in that video followed exactly the Gentile system when it comes to education. So according to the Bible, we have different places. Titus chapter 2. We have Genesis 24, a very good details in Genesis 24 with Rebecca. We have that. We don't see his parent or her parents saying, no. She has to finish education. We don't see that. She was a damsel. She was young. So if you look at in the Hebrew culture, there is a name that we call people. Okay? So when we say elder, in the Hebrew culture, an elder, you already know that a 10 years old boy cannot be an elder. You know that. Okay? So a 20 years old boy is not an elder. You have to be at a certain age to be an elder. You have to have a gray hair in your head to be an elder. So it's something that you have to get to a certain age and you're automatically an elder. That's how you earn that role. So the elders usually gather together and decide and judge our cases. So just like we have that, we also have something that we call young girls. So when you hear that, you already know that it's somebody from this age to this age. So we have something called damsel or a maiden. A damsel or a maiden. Once you hear that word, you know, oh, she's still a virgin. So as soon as she gets married, as soon as a man lays with her, you're no longer a maiden. You're no longer a damsel. So Ruth is a good example. She got married. When her husband died, her mother-in-law wanted her to leave and go get married to another man because she was too young. But she was never really addressed like that. She's a widow now. She is now a widow, even though she was young, but she was a widow. Her mother-in-law was telling her, "There's no way, you're not going to stay here. I know you want to stay, but you're too young. You need to leave. You go back to your father's house. You're too young to be here. Go back to your father's house so that you can get married again." So in the Hebrew culture, girls who are at a certain age and are still a virgin, they are called damsel or a maiden. Just like somebody who is at a certain age, usually they have to be at least 60. At least 60, 3 scores of years. At least 3 scores, at least 60. Meaning you're no longer a kid. So a 30 years old boy is not an elder. Even a 40 years cannot, you have to get a certain age. Possibly a grandfather. Because now you're thinking differently. Now you have more experience. So when you look at Genesis, you see that Rebecca was very young. But you don't see the parents saying, "Oh, no, she has to finish school, she has to finish this, They didn't do that. They did not do that. So we who are now following the Europeans, I know that majority of the time we do it out of ignorance, right? We begin to follow them out of ignorance. That's fine, because we didn't know. The thing is that now we know. Now we know. So the problem is knowing and refusing to change in everything. In everything. That's when the problem comes. That's why I told you to read Ezekiel chapter 18. And possibly read Jubilees. Whenever I tell you to read a particular place, there's a reason why I tell you to read it. It's not going to be boring. If you read it, it's going to be exactly the reason why I told you to read it. Because I've read it. So when I say something and I give you a scripture, check it out. Read it. Usually when you read it, you're going to get more information about that particular subject. So what I just said right now is a good example. I told you, see, yes, the truth of the matter is that we were all born into this system. We did not all intentionally begin to break the Sabbath. We did not know. We were born into Christianity. That is the truth. Most of us did not choose to start disobeying Yah. That's just the system that we were born into. So when you look at Jubilees chapter 1, you see that before we even begin to follow the Gentiles, before we begin to do all this stuff that we're doing today, Yah knew, and he told Moshe in details what we were going to do in the future. So now you can do yourself a favor and you can read Jubilees chapter 1 and see that Yah knew ahead of time that we will do these things. He knew that we will follow the Gentiles. He knew that we will try to worship him the way of the Gentiles. That we will try to keep the Sabbath using the Gentile system. Jubilees chapter 1. Jubilees chapter 1. He explained it in details to Moshe. So Yah knew these things ahead of time. The point being that because he knew that you and I will be born into this situation, He is merciful. He will be merciful towards us if we will repent. The problem is not that we were born into it. The problem is when we refuse to repent. And that's exactly what most of our people and most of us are doing. Refusing to repent. Because if we will turn away from lawlessness and we begin to keep the law, the Most High will, what happened has happened. He will forgive us, depending on the sin, though. Depending on the sin, because if you have a Gentile as your wife, you still have to get rid of her, though. So you're not going to get to keep her because you married her out of ignorance. No. Part of the repentance is that you're going to have to get rid of her. If you have a Gentile husband, you have to get rid of him. You can't stay with that person because you got started out of ignorance. Ezra chapter 10 shows you that. Ezra chapter 10 was actually a very good example of when our ancestors was in Babylon, right? They were born in Babylon. They grew up in Babylon, just like today. So they began to do certain things, right? They began to practice, because Babylon is kind of like America. Actually, not kind of. Babylon is like America in the sense that there were different cultures. You have the Babylonians, but Babylon attracted people from different nations that went over there. Things was, very, very different in Babylon compared to other countries. Things was very different. So you can actually see today, if you look up the pictures of the ancient Babylon, because of what Yah said about Babylon. Babylon was, you can see the buildings. It's amazing that today you can actually see the foundations of the buildings that was around more than 2,000 years ago. That's interesting. That's amazing. You can still see the foundations of those buildings. You can still see the foundations in Babylon. Buildings that people used to live in over 2,000 years ago. Like almost like 3,000 years ago. You can still see the foundation. Because the unique thing is that Yah said that it was going to be that way. So it's going to be abandoned. It's going to look abandoned. And it looks abandoned right now. I mean, you would expect that after 3,000 years that all of those stuff would have been, it would be like a forest or something. The fact that you can still see foundations of building from thousands of years ago, that is very interesting. So Babylon attracted a lot of people from different countries that went in there and just like, no, we're not going anywhere. I'm not leaving. This is pretty right here. So it attracted all kinds of people, and Israelite was able to see people of other nations. That's why I say it's like America today. So they were able to see other nations. And they married them. So, like you see today, Hebrew Israelites that marries Asians, Latinos, Europeans. These things are all abomination. As a Hebrew Israelite, you're not supposed to do this. You are not supposed to do this. Read Jubilees chapter 30. Jubilees chapter 30. According to Jubilees chapter 30, we cannot do it. They cannot marry our children. We cannot marry their children. Absolutely not. So, but just like in the book of Ezra chapter 10, they got into it out of ignorance. But when they found out that they cannot marry these Gentile women or these hidden women, they got rid of them. So that is repentance. So Yah knew that we are going to end up in this situation where we are going to be following the Gentiles. Jubilees chapter 1. Jubilees, read the whole chapter. Jubilees chapter 1. So when I say Jubilees chapter 30, I mean the whole chapter. Read everything, because the whole chapter pretty much deals with about not marrying these Gentiles. Jubilees chapter 1, read the whole chapter. It details how Yah was telling us ahead of time the things that we're doing right now, the way we're following the Gentiles. So, having said that, having the fact that Yah knew, he's not gonna throw you, like he's not gonna just destroy you, because he understands the situation, knowing fully well that you were born into sin, you were born into that system. So that's why he gives us a chance to repent. The problem starts when we refuse to repent. That's when Yah destroys us. That's when we will go into the group of people who will be destroyed. And that's exactly what we're doing today. We're refusing to repent because of cheap, pleasure. Cheap pleasure. There was a sister that found out about the biblical marriage, and a brother had found out about that and shared it with this sister. And the sister knew about it. She's a Hebrew. So eventually she decided to move in with some guy, another Hebrew brother. And this person that shared this thing with her asked her, "What are you doing? Don't you know that he can't marry you?" And she was like, "Well, I don't want to be by myself for the rest of my life. I don't want to be by myself for the rest of my life." And she became pregnant and gave birth to a girl. So my question is, who told you that he's going to be with you for the rest of your life? So you are going to go against the law. You're going against the law because you don't want to be by yourself for the rest of your life. Who told you that this man will be by yourself for the rest of your life? So there's no guarantee. So when it's like that man, right? The man in the gospel that was a farmer, was built a huge barn to expand his farming business. Then after he built a huge barn, he began to say to himself, "Man, I'm rich. I'm rich. I'm going to be even more richer. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that." And Yah told him, "You will die tonight. Let's see how you're going to, basically be around to enjoy those things." So it's kind of like that, I'm paraphrasing that scripture. I'm just paraphrasing it but that's kind of what goes on there. So here he was making plans, and he never remembered Yah. He never had Yah in his plan. And Yah said, "All right, well, you've built your huge barn to expand your business, and I'm going to kill you tonight. You're dying tonight. So let's see how you're going to be around to enjoy all of that." It's kind of like that. We have to put Yah first in everything we do. Everything we do. So it's not okay to, because of cheap pleasure, like the sister that said that she doesn't want to be by herself for the rest of her life, as if that man is going to be, be by her side for the rest of her life. No, that man can dump you tomorrow, dump you with that baby, and go be with someone else. Because if that man is not fearful of Yah to the point to keep his laws and not, he's not gonna. What makes him be committed to you? What makes him? So these are just, seeking temporary pleasure. We have to be very careful. Seeking out temporary pleasure. That pork may taste good. That shrimp may taste good. That sex may be good. Whatever that thing is. But if you think about it, it's not really worth it. It's not worth it it's just not worth it. Especially if you look at what you've already done in the past, how much you've already invested in your journey. It's just not worth it to damage your relationship with the Most High because of temporary pleasure. And it's so bad to the point that even if we decide to, because of Hebrews chapter 10, right? Hebrews chapter 10 really makes it difficult because it tells us that if we sin willfully, so we can't even do it, and if we sin willfully, Yah will not forgive that sin. If we're doing it willfully, the only thing that happens is eventually we'll be destroyed. Yah will cut us off, and we're going to be going around dressing moderately and talking about knowing God when the Spirit of Yah have left us. And right now, we don't even have the Spirit of Yah the way we're supposed to. Did you know that you can have the ability to pray for someone or to lay your hands on someone and they recover? You have the ability to, there are things that we have the ability to do. Like I was explaining to someone, but you have to be in a certain environment. The Spirit of Yah cannot be with you in everywhere you are. If you go into a filthy place, the Spirit of Yah cannot be with you there. The Spirit of Yah cannot be with you everywhere. So example of this is our ancestors. What did Yah tell us to do? To make sure that we keep our camp very clean. Because His Spirit is with us. His Spirit comes around with us, and be around us. So we have to keep the camp clean. When the Israelites, our ancestors, when one of them stole or took some of the things that Yah told us not to take, Yah told us to destroy everything in that nation and not take anything with us. One of our people stole something. Because the sin is that we're not supposed to take anything. But he decided to take some money, some silver, and some Babylonians' garment. So the problem is that Yah told us, don't take anything. Destroy everything in that land. Do not take anything with you. He ended up taking something with him. It wasn't about what he took. It wasn't about the material. It was the fact that Yah told us not to take anything. That was the same situation we faced with Saul and, when Yah told us to go there and destroy those people in 1 Samuel. So when that man took those materials, the Spirit of Yah left us. The Spirit of Yah left the whole Israelite. And we didn't even know. Our ancestors did not know that Yah was no longer with them. So they went to a war. They went to a particular war and they lost badly. We were in shock that we lost that war. We went to another war, we lost badly. That's when they realized that something is not right. So we began to cry out to Yah. And eventually it was revealed. It was because somebody stole something. Somebody took something. Somebody basically broke Yah's law. The law was go there, kill everything, kill everyone. Don't take anything with you. There are circumstances where Yah tells us, take something. That we have a law that says if we go to war against our enemy, not all our enemy, if we go to war against the Gentiles, no, we're not going to take their women. So when you see these brothers on the street that talks about how they're going to be having sex with white women, that's ridiculous. That's crazy. You're not going to be having sex with white women because Yah does not cause anyone to sin. So if we go to war against people like the Ethiopians or the Egyptians, those people we can marry, like Abraham or Moshe married them. So when we go to war to people like that, there are certain circumstances where Yah says, hey, if you go to war against your enemy and you see a woman that you like, if you see a girl that you like, you can take her. You can take her home, just give her some time to mourn her parents. So there are circumstances where Yah tells us to take something if we want to. There are circumstances where he says, take nothing with you. So, but we still go ahead and take something anyway, like in 1 Samuel, chapter 14, 15. You read about how we ended up taking 1 Samuel chapter 14 and chapter 15. So, but the point is that the Spirit of Yah leaves us. And typically when the Spirit of Yah leaves somebody, they wouldn't know. They will not know. They continue to sing glory and sing hallelujah, not realizing that Yah have left them. Because Yah will not be with someone who is rebellious to his law. He doesn't do it. Their prayer is an abomination. So this is there is no other way. Most of our suffering today is that, like a parent, we are trying to force Yah, we're trying to force Yah to let us play by our own rules. It doesn't work like that. We play by his rules. And his rules is found in the book of Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Numbers, Exodus. That's where we find his rules. But we are trying to go by our own rules. And then we are pretending as if everything is fine. That's the one that is really bad. We pretend as if everything is just fine, Oh, I'm a Christian. Oh, I love the Lord. Oh, I'm saved. No. Christ said that whoever endures to the end, he is the one that will be saved. Nobody is saved right now. Nobody is saved. These are some of the stuff you hear from Christianity. They say once saved, always saved. Oh my goodness. So, but we're clearly pretending as if everything is fine. But Yah is not happy with us. So there's a certain environment that we will be in. There's a certain lifestyle you begin. If the holier you are, the more set apart you are, the closer you get to Yah. The closer you get to Yah, then you begin to exercise certain spiritual power. Yah will begin to allow you to have certain spiritual power. This is what you saw with Paul. When Paul was Saul, he knew the law, but he wasn't keeping the law. He had no power. He was famous. He was well known. He knew the law of the Most High, but he wasn't keeping it. He was just like any other Pharisees, but he didn't have any power. But when he began to keep the law, okay, this is another false impression that Satan have given using the European Christianity today. They give you this impression that everybody in Jerusalem was keeping the law during the time of Christ. That is not true. And the example is found in Matthew chapter 15. So in Matthew chapter 15 from verse 1 to 9, Matthew 15 from verse 1 to 9, you see Christ accusing them of not keeping the law of the Most High. Christ was accusing them of following traditions of men. If everybody in Jerusalem was following the law of the Most High, Yeshua would not show up there, because everything will be fine. He said in Matthew 9:13, I came not for the righteous, but I came to bring sinners to repentance. He wouldn't be going about on the street screaming his lungs out, telling them to repent, that this kingdom of heaven is at hand. Repent from what? They're keeping the law. So there's a big lie that the Europeans have promoted by saying that, giving the impression that the Israelite was keeping the law, which is a contradiction from other things that they do say. Oh, nobody can keep the law. The Israelite couldn't keep the law. Then when it suits them, they switch. Well, nobody, we're not under the law because Christ was preaching against the law. The Israelite was keeping the law and Christ was telling us. So that's what they say when it suits them. So there is this misconception or misunderstanding or misinformation that the Europeans are promoting through their pagan religion known as Christianity, which is they want to give you the impression that people was observing the law in Jerusalem during the time of Christ. That was not true. Absolutely not. And we have Matthew chapter 15 from verse 1 to 9 to show that. So they were not observing the law. Rather, they were following man-made traditions. So when Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, came and began to teach the law and began to bring people back to the law, they didn't like that. They felt threatened. They felt threatened. How dare he? They felt embarrassed. The leaders, the high priest and the leaders, and they felt embarrassed. Who the hell does he think he is? We are supposed to teach the law. Yeshua was teaching the law. So every morning he goes from his homeless, where he was staying. He was a homeless man. Yeah, they're not going to tell you this one. They're not going to let you know that Christ was a homeless man. He had no house of his own. He was sleeping in the bush. Luke chapter 21. At the very end of Luke 21. Read and you see what it says. So, Satan have truly deceived the whole world with information. So there's a lot of things that are hidden, and the ones that are allowed out are fake information, fake news. And it's so difficult to see the right one. But the truth is still reserved in the scriptures. It's right there in the scriptures if you're willing to tell yourself the truth. You can clearly see it. So Christ, Yeshua, was actually teaching the law. And people did not like that. Because they were more interested in the traditions of their father than what's written in the Torah. So they give the impression that Saul or Paul was teaching people to not keep the law. That's the information that you get today, the understanding that you get today, that the reason why Christ came is just to establish a new system because the old system was not working. That understanding goes against the word of Christ himself, who says in John chapter, if you read John chapter 6 and John chapter 7, John chapter 7, we read about him and his brethren, his brothers. So he was still living in the house at that time, but as things begin to deteriorate, which if you're keeping the law, eventually you realize that you begin to have problems with your family members. You're not alone. You're not going to be the first to experience that. It happened to Abraham. It happened to Yeshua. So at some point he lived in the family house, but it just came to a point that he just left them. He moved. And if you look at the book of, in book of John, and you see that the fact, you see the way he spoke to them. So at some point he became frustrated and he left because they wouldn't keep the law. They did not want to keep the law, so he just left them. He would rather live in the bush and be by himself than to live in the house with his brothers who did not want to keep the law. He would rather live in the bush. So that's what you see in John chapter 7. So as of John chapter 7, Yeshua was still living in the house, but at some point he left and went and started sleeping in the bush. So in John chapter 16, you see that, not John chapter 16, but if you look at the impression that Yeshua gave, you see that it's contrary to the understanding that we get today. And I think it's for people who are coming into this truth for the first time, some of these things will be actually very beneficial, because as you're coming into the truth, there's a lot of unanswered questions, because you still have what you were told about the mark of the beast and the Antichrist. It's still there. You still have what you were told about, New Testament being used to replace the Old Testament, Christ creating a new church. All this information are still there. So actually, this is very, very important information for people to see that actually it's not so. It's not, people are going to have this as questions. These are going to be questions that need answered. What about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? What about, so what about the mark of the beast? What about this? So I think that for some people, this is going to be very helpful to destroy these impression that has been given. Like as I said, they don't have to say anything, but they can give you impression, just like they give you the impression that you don't have to keep the law. They don't have to say it, but they give the impression, oh, we are under grace. So when they say we are under grace, they are trying to insinuate that we don't have to keep the law. So if you look at John chapter 16, you look at the words of Christ, read it, look at his words. And if you look at his words, the things that he said, John chapter 16, John chapter 17, you see that he did not come to preach his own word. Everything he said, he came to say the things that he was taught to say. And we have Deuteronomy chapter 18, 18 and 19. Deuteronomy chapter 18, 18 and 19. Chapter 18, verse 18 and verse 19. Yah tells us that he was going to send somebody. And whatever that person tells us to do, we must do it. A prophet like Moshe. Since the days of Moshe, there has never been a prophet like Moses. There was never a prophet. Most of the prophets will simply prophesy, go around, scream, yell, and that's it. They didn't go extra mile trying to get you to keep the law like Yeshua. So no prophet has ever been like Moshe. No prophet was ever like Moshe until Yeshua showed up. And Yah told us in Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 18 and verse 19. Deuteronomy 18, verse 18 and 19, that he will send a prophet like unto Moshe. That was Yeshua. That was the reason why in Matthew chapter 23, verse 1 to 3, you see Yeshua telling us that the scribes and the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat. Therefore, whatever they teach us to do, that we should do it. He was that prophet like Moshe. But today they give you the impression that Christ came with a new gospel. But when you read in your Bible, you see that he is telling you that you have to keep the law. So these are the things that are very clear, and unfortunately, most of our people they can easily understand this. It's just that when somebody doesn't want to keep the law, it doesn't really matter what you say. It doesn't really matter. You can say whatever you want. They don't want to keep the law. They don't want to keep the law. So, but they're not going to tell you that though. See, that's the thing. That's the thing. They will not tell you that. They will just give you excuse. They give you a bunch of excuses to justify. They will either say we are not under the law, we are under grace, blah blah blah. But it's just that they want to, they want to be able to continue doing whatever it is that they do. That's what this is all about. So there's something that I did mention, which is about the Gentiles and following the Gentiles and not following the Gentiles. If you will heed that warning in Jeremiah chapter 10 verse 2, Jeremiah 10:2, if you will heed that warning, is it a coincidence that the Europeans are so amazed by the things in the heavens? They're so amazed by the things in the heavens, like you see in Jeremiah chapter 10 verse 2. You see, this is not a coincidence. Jeremiah 10:2, Yah told you not to learn their ways. Learn not the ways of the Gentiles. Let me read that. Read that and read it exactly the way it was said. Jeremiah 10 verse 2. Jeremiah 10:2. Thou said, Yah, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. The heathens are dismayed at them. That's King James. That is King James Version. Let me read New King James. Jeremiah 10:2. Jeremiah chapter 10 verse 2. Jeremiah chapter 10 verse 2. That says, Yah, do not learn the way of the Gentiles. Do not be dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the Gentiles are dismayed at them. So when you look at the way they behave, they are obsessed with lunar eclipse and all this stuff. They are so obsessed with it that they even lied that they went to the moon. They did not go to no moon. They did not. There was a lie. And there's a prophecy that actually kind of deals with that lie. It talks about how the beast will make fire to come down from heaven, and the whole world is amazed, and the whole world will wonder after the beast. So I wanted to do something that we've done a while ago. I wanted to do a major study on the mark of the beast. It's well long overdue. I have to do that to get into details in the book of all this prophecy, Daniel 7 and Daniel 2 and the book of Revelation. For those of you that was around here when we did that, you saw what the mark of the beast is all about. You saw what the beast is all about. You saw that there's not going to be any antichrist in the future, because they are misunderstanding 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. 2 Thessalonians 2, which deals with, that was a prophecy about Christianity. So Yah's willing, we're going to do that soon about that mark of the beast, so you can have a full understanding of this. So what's going on is that if you look at about their lies about the moon, they never went to the moon. If you study about something called Van Allen belt, so what they named Van Allen belt is a radiation, dangerous, high level, dangerous radiation that the Most High put in the sky. So Yah puts it there to put a limit to how far we can go. if we want to go up. So it doesn't matter what you have on, doesn't matter the kind of plane that you are in. If you keep going and you get to that belt, that thing will melt you. It melts everything. And according to NASA, right now, they are studying to find out how to be able to protect themselves to go past that Van Allen belt, that radiation they call Van Allen belt. I guess it was named after the man that discovered it. So because of that radiation that is in the sky, somewhere in the sky, all the way up, you cannot pass it, and you have to pass it to get to the moon. So the question is that after 40 years, NASA is still studying to figure out how to go past Van Allen belt. The question is, how were they able to pass it in the 1960s to get to the moon? If they were able to pass it back then with very little technology, how come they haven't been able to figure it out till now? That's because they did not go anywhere. They did not go anywhere, and you begin to look at the pictures of their so-called lunar landing. As they were landing to the moon, there was a picture that was taken from the moon of the lunar lander. So who took that picture then? I guess an alien, right? Some alien had a camera and took that picture for them. It's like you being on a parachute and you're landing somewhere for the first time, and there's a picture of you landing. So there's a lot of questions and a lot of there are documentaries on YouTube that shows you how they made the whole thing up. It was all filmed in a military stage and a military movie studio. It's all propaganda that was used to brainwash the rest of the world. It was a psychological attack on the rest of the nations, because if these people went to the moon, then they must be great. They must be really smart. We don't want to mess with these people because they went to the moon. That's what they got out of this, to use it to psychologically intimidate the rest of the countries. That was the reason why in that 1960s people's eyes was glued to their television. And but why haven't they gone to the moon from that time till now? They say they are still figuring out how to. That's what they say. They say that after they came back from the moon, they destroyed the technologies that they used to go to the moon. That's what they say. So that they didn't save those technologies. So you were able to figure out how to go to the moon short period of time after their current president at that time said they will go to the moon. Within short period of time, you went to the moon. You figured it out in less than 10 years and you went to the moon. But then it has been more than 40 years. You're still not able to figure it out. Now that you have powerful supercomputers, you're still not able to figure it out. So it's a lie. They've never gone to the moon. They will never go to the moon. Nobody will ever go to the moon. Nobody will ever go to the moon. But it's all a lies created to make themselves more superior and use it to intimidate all these other countries, So these are the things that, like as I said, if you will stay away from the Gentiles, and if you will basically investigate everything you do, everything you eat, and try to stay away from their things, from their drinks, from their food. What is their food? Hamburgers, pizza. If you want to eat something like that, then make it yourself. You know that you are using your own ingredients to make it. It's yours. So if you want to eat fries, make it yourself. Buy your own potato and make it yourself. Stay away from their oil. All these seed oil, this synthetic oil, canola oil, run for your life. That word canola came from Canada. So the so-called scientist that created that oil is from Canada. So canola oil is from Canada. It's not good. You don't want to be eating canola oil. That thing will kill you. Stay away from canola oil. You can go look it up for yourself. Go on YouTube and type in dangers of canola oil. Dangers of canola oil. That's not good for your health. But they will tell you that it is. Soybean oil. About 93% of the soybean in America is genetically modified. Genetically modified, it's not good. So they use that soybean to make soybean oil, which is in pretty much everything you buy in the store has soybean oil, almost everything, because it's very cheap. Why is it cheap? Because it's genetically modified. That's why it's cheap. So they use it to make soybean oil, and then after the soybean, a company that make the soybean oil, they chaff the waste of that soybean oil. They sell it to the poultry industry. So the chicken industry, those that produce chicken, they will buy that soybean chaff and feed to their chickens. The problem is with this is that that's genetically modified. So these chickens are now eating this thing. So in that way, they're not able to spend so much money because the oil industry was going to throw that chaff away anyways. So, but they sell it to the chicken industry who now feed it to the chicken. That saves them a lot of money on chicken feeds. That's the reason why you go to a store, you see a whole chicken for $7 something. If you buy a chicken and bring it to your house, by the time that chicken is ready to be eaten, it will cost you way more, at least $50 to feed that chicken. So how are you able to buy a whole chicken for $7 or 7 something or $8? Because the stuff they're feeding the chicken is, they don't spend much on that stuff, and that stuff is genetically modified. Genetically modified waste from the soybean oil industry. So when you do buy that chicken and eat it, it ends up in your body. So that's a problem, and it creates problems in your body. So that's why, I don't really advise people in America to eat beef. Don't eat beef because unless if you're 100% sure that it's grass-fed. Most beef are fed genetically modified corn. You don't want that stuff in your body. And by the way, it's against the law. Leviticus 19:19. Leviticus 19:19 prohibits us from making GMOs. But they're doing it because they don't give a damn about the Torah. Leviticus 19:19 prohibits us from mixing these things together. Let a chicken be chicken. Let corn be corn. Let mango be mango. Don't mix them together. But that's what they're doing. And that's why people are so sick. So beginning to keep the law and simply taking the instruction, heeding the instruction in Jeremiah 10:2 will save you a lot of stress, a lot of bad health issue. What oil is good? Coconut oil is fine. Coconut oil is good. Actually really good. Coconut oil. But they will tell you that it's not. They tell you that it's not because they want to sell the one that they genetically modified, the one that they make themselves. They want to sell that one. So coconut oil is good. Olive oil is good. Palm oil is also good. Palm oil or peanut oil. These are good. The rest of the seed oil, like when you see that so-called vegetable oil, stay away from it. There's nothing like vegetable oil. Okay, that's one of those seed oil. These are chemicals. These are synthetic seed oil. Seed oil, they put the word vegetable oil. And you look at it, oh, vegetable oil. It's a psychological thing. So when you see the word vegetable, you want to buy that oil. Stay away from that crap. There's so many things that we're eating today that are making us to be sick. So many things, even to the pot that you use to cook. So try to stick with stainless steel. Stay away from ceramic, and what's the other one? Um, that the non-stick one. All those modern day pots, like those modern day pots. What is it called? That's uh, those pots that they advertise that your food will not be sticky. Yeah, that's because they have the chemicals that makes it not to be sticky in the pot. And when you heat it up, those chemicals slowly goes into your food. And one of the things that it causes is it causes men not to be able to have children. It causes a lot of infidelity plus other things. So you want to stick to stainless steel um, pot, normal stainless steel. What's the other one that is good? If you can find, um, if you can find stainless steel is the best, but stay away from the modern day pots, cooking pots. The modern day ones, try to stay away from that. Like the ones that the post pots you see that are like black, it looks really good. You can put your food and cook your food, and you just remove the food and it's all clean. So that convenient is not worth it because those things are not good for your hair. They put so many coating, chemical coating to coat that pot. That's why your food is not sticking on it. But it does. It's not good for your health. You can look it up for yourself. You can look it up. You can type in to Google something like dangers of cooking pots or something like that, and I'm sure you probably see something that will give you more information about that. So these are the things that, you know, if you begin to take the word of the Most High seriously, then you begin to become skeptical of the Gentiles. Begin to become skeptical because following them is disastrous. And I showed you a video of those sisters that was following the European system. Okay, so they ended up getting to the top. They ended up graduating and getting really nice job, buying nice car, nice houses or nice house, but they have no husband. Men are only interested in them for sex. But Satan told them, if you go to school and do this, then you will be successful. So what's the good of being successful when you have money, cars, house, but you have no children and you want children? You have no husband and you want a husband. What's the point? It's like you're selling your womanhood for those things. And that's exactly what happens to them. That's exactly what happens. Because so the time that they're supposed to get married, they use it to go to school and waste their time for nothing. Completely waste their time. So when they should be married, that's what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to be married. You're not supposed to go and join some school and go and that's not your job. That's not what we see in Proverbs 31. That woman is busy working from home. She's busy. Everything that she was a very busy woman in Proverbs 31. She was a very busy woman, but whatever she does was at home. Like it was about advancing the house, building up the house, advancing the house. That allows her husband to be able to go out in the gate and be able to join other elders and do the work of Yah by judging the people. So he doesn't have to worry about day-to-day stuff in the house, whether the babies, whether their diapers are changed and whether they ate today. That's not his job to be worried about stuff like that. That's the job of the wife. But today, a lot of Gentiles who disagree. So these are the things, initially in the beginning it's sexy, it's nice, and it's romantic when we follow the ways of the Gentiles, but eventually we pay huge price. And I'm going to hope that, I don't know, it's really, when I look at my people or our people, I don't see much hope. You know, there's not much hope because we still refuse to let go of pleasure. That's why we don't keep, most people don't keep the law. They wouldn't tell you, but that's why. We refuse to let go of pleasure. Pleasure, like, we don't want to make that changes, the changes that needed to be made. We don't want to make it. We don't want to dress differently. We don't want to worship differently. We just want to fit in. So, but please do not, don't worry about it. Don't worry about that. Just do your thing and work out your own salvation. If you have an opportunity to try to wake other people up, do it. But don't worry about, in terms of, because everybody is going to answer for themselves, and you want to focus on your own thing and not let worrying about other people bring you down. So the truth is that most Hebrew Israelites, if you look at the current system in the world, most of us are going to, most of us will probably not make it into the kingdom, because we must follow the laws and the commandments in order to make it. And if we're not following the laws and the commandments, then we're not going to make it. So if there's any time for grace or mercy, it's right now. This is it. This is the time for grace and mercy. So if we turn right now, we will be forgiven. But if we continue in this path and then the wrath of Yah comes into full force, then that's it. So I thank our Heavenly Father for everything. I give Yah all the glory and all the honor for all that He has done. I wish that you would really take a closer look at that Jeremiah chapter 10 verse 2 and try to do that. Learn not the ways of the Gentiles. Now, people are going to laugh at you. People will mock you. People will think you're crazy, just like they did Noah. So, but that's going to really begin to change your life. That will make you to stop eating certain things that they make. There's a lot of stuff that, it's like drinking coffee every morning. That's a bad idea. That's what you do when you're following the Gentiles. That's not good. Coffee is too acidic. Your body is very alkaline. Coffee is too acidic. You don't want to be pouring that thing in your body every morning. But that's what they do. So as soon as you begin to take Jeremiah chapter 10 verse 2 seriously, then you begin to question everything. You begin to question everything. And you have to do it according to the law. What does the law say about this? What does the law say about that? When you come into a store, like for example, I don't eat gum anymore. Chewing gum. I used to a lot, but I don't. Next time you pick up a gum, flip it around and look at the label. It has something called aspartame. They remove the sugar and they put aspartame. So aspartame is not a good chemical. It's a chemical that you don't want in your body. And it's in gums. So it's been years now since I ate gum. I don't eat gum anymore because of that chemical, aspartame. So you see, when you begin to heed that simple warning, learn not the ways of the Gentiles, you begin to question everything. And by questioning these things and making sure that whatever you eat or do is according to the law, what happens in that case is that you will begin to benefit, because you eventually you begin to recover if you have a disease or whatever, because now you have less chemicals in your body. So there's a lot of things like that, like soda also. Why would you want to drink soda? I mean, why would you want to drink soda made with like made with high fructose corn syrup, and that's not good for your health. Like, as yes people, it just doesn't make any sense to drink soda. You can drink water. You can make your own orange juice. You don't buy their own orange juice. So these are the things that, and when you have the mentality, this is what, it doesn't make any sense to. There's nothing you've been, Coke or Fanta or soda doesn't do you any good. There's no zero benefit other than that it tastes good. It tastes good, that's it. So it's a man-made something that tastes, it's very pleasurable. So that's why I told you that if you will simply hit that warning, you add at least 10 to 20 years in your life, to your life. And I always use that sister as an example. The sister that began to listen to these things, she began to listen and she began to keep the law, and she listens and then she began to make the changes. So she went from taking medication as a diabetic, now she doesn't take any medication. And the more she continues to listen and the more she continues to go, the more she's going to recover. Another one is microwave. Oh my goodness. Go on YouTube. I see. I don't just want to tell you, and for you to take my word for it. Microwave is very convenient. Very convenient. You take food that is cold, you put it in there, you press it. In 2 minutes or in 1 minute, it's hot. It's convenient, but it's killing you also. It destroys the food. So you can go on YouTube and type dangers of microwave. Dangers of microwave oven. Dangers of microwave oven, and you see for yourself. So that also, it's been a while since I try to avoid that. It's been a while since I intentionally used the microwave. I got rid of it's been a while. So it's figure out other ways to warm up your food. But microwave does destroy the food, and it removes the nutrition in the food. It's not healthy to use microwave. There are many different other things also, but I'm going to stop it here, and Yah's willing will continue next time. But these are the things that if you begin to make these changes, then you begin to recover from all the pains and all the suffering and all the disease. So I thank our Heavenly Father for everything, for opening our eyes. For those who are not keeping the law because of one thing or the other, pleasure or whatever reason, if you haven't started keeping the law, this is the time to start. This is the time to start keeping the law, start observing the law, start keeping the laws and the commandments. This is the time. The Sabbath is a good place to start. Your fringes, sewing your fringes into your clothes. Fringes, we have to wear fringes. So this is a good time to start keeping the law. Reading your scriptures twice, once in the daytime, once at night, twice in a day, once in the daytime, once at night. Then praying like 3 times a day. Daniel chapter 6, Daniel chapter 7, Daniel chapter 6, Matthew chapter 6 also. So these are the things that, there's no, those who, like our ancestors, like our family members who are refusing to keep the law. Look at how vulnerable they are. They are in danger because they're eating all of these things. They don't even know that they're killing themselves. So we want to stick to natural things. We want to be able to buy our own food and cook it ourselves and know exactly what's in there. So I thank our Heavenly Father for everything. I give you all glory and all honor. And like I always say, for those that do have any question, you are more than welcome to contact me if you do have any question about any of this. But we must go back and start keeping those laws and the commandment. We must start now. Book of Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Numbers, and Exodus. We must start keeping those laws